Hey everybody, thanks for joining us on GTM and the Tofu Bowl. Today I have Aneesh Lal. I'm really pumped to talk to him because he is the Jerry Maguire of LinkedIn. That made me laugh when I saw it. Kind of the king of influencer marketing. So thanks for joining me, Anish.
Appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
That actually did really make me laugh. I love when people can have a little bit of fun with LinkedIn and fun with their profile names. So I used to call myself the head spearfisher woman just because
Nice.
titles are super arbitrary, but yours actually makes sense.
No, I'm sure it made sense. No, honestly, for me, it's just having fun with it. And, if I'm dealing with people in the marketing space, like they're like, we get it. That's a schema everyone understands. And maybe that's something that, we can connect with. So it's been a lot of fun for sure.
I also saw you kind of started your career at Coca-Cola of all places. How did you kind of go from being in like a CPG company into tech and then finding your way around?
Yeah. So after when I was at Coke, from there I went to go do my MBA, and it was during my MBA where I found out I'm like, oh my goodness, the future is tech. The future, like,
Yeah.
and I loved Coca-Cola, great foundation, great first job out of school, my undergrad, but just knowing the future is like not CPG for me, at least for me, it was not the case. Doing sales in CPG just in a smaller market like Toronto, I didn't see how I could get to where I wanted to go. So from one thing led to another, I called up some friends and I ended up at a company called Flip, and that's where it sort of combined my Coca-Cola CPG experience, but then also on the digital marketing, media, coupons, flyers, like that sort of thing. And that's how I got into Martech, and everything's it's all history from there.
Slight tangent, but I'm always curious for people who did get an MBA. Was it worth it? Are you glad you did that?
Oh, you're gonna get me in so much trouble. Um, probably not. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
I look back, like the job at Flip, for example, was offered to me before I went for my MBA.
Oh, interesting.
Technically, and I took the job. Now the MBA did make me take the job offer more seriously because I'm like, I've had this time to reflect and learn, and everything's all about tech, sure. But I was already talking to Flip technically before I even got my MBA. So I always think back, like if I joined Flip a year and a half earlier, I probably would have been further along at Flip. And Flip was one of the best educational and experiences of my entire career, right? So it makes me wonder. I'm like, I probably gotten better stock options and everything going a year and a half early. So I don't know. I think about that often. It's a hit or miss.
I always have because I get asked a lot for I didn't do an MBA and my take was always that you're gonna learn so much more and get paid to do it versus pay to learn by going to an MBA. Although my rule is there's three reasons that I think it makes sense. First reason is like a total career pivot. So you've
Mhm.
gone down a certain path for a while and you
Yeah.
want to completely pivot. The second is for people that truly don't come from a network and they're looking to build a network. So I think that actually is a valuable reason. And the third, which I joke, but I actually am super serious, is to meet a spouse or a co-founder.
Nice.
I cannot tell you the number of people I know that have met somebody and married them or met their co-founder in business school. So I do think that that's valuable.
Yeah. Again, that's part of the networking thing. Like I think for an MBA especially, it's like if you want to work in a specific sector and the alumni from there, and that they're all playing in that field, absolutely go for it. For someone like me in tech sales, the MBA piece didn't really open up that much for me. Um, but people can argue that the business acumen, that the different frameworks and things you learn that way, to then have a conversation someone in the C-suite about their business, who knows? Who knows how much it rubbed off on me there, right? That's something to think about.
Nice. Well, enough about MBA. So I really believe that this is the year where influence, like B2B influencer marketing, is going to absolutely explode. And that's kind of what led me to you in the first place. And I know obviously you were way ahead of the curve on this. When did you start noticing that this was happening? And I guess what gave you the both the courage and the conviction that I'm going to go do my own thing and this is going to be real?
Yeah, so it started with Kevin Dorsey somewhere around 2021, 2022. So KD and I were talking back and forth. I was helping him with some community stuff. And like my background's media sales, right? So I've worked at Pinterest, I've worked at some of these companies and some of the biggest brands in the world, selling to some of the biggest brands in the world. And I come here in this LinkedIn ecosystem. I look at KD and I see how much attention he's getting, and I'm like, hey, if you bundle up your podcast, your newsletter, your social posts, like that's worth something to brands, especially for the tech that you use already. Like, he's like, oh my goodness, like this is such a great idea. He's like, some brands have already reached out to me. I just didn't know how to handle those conversations. So I took my media sales background working at, for Pinterest and Flip. And I went to KD and I was like, I came up with his media kit, bundled up his offers, and he didn't even know, he didn't even know we had a media kit for the longest time. He's like, this is fantastic. This is such a great way to talk about what we do. And one thing led to another, and I closed his first deal, then his second deal, then his third deal. And then the part where I got lucky is that they all talk. These sales influencers, they all talk. So one thing led to another, and someone asked KD, like, "Hey, how are you do? How'd you get this? What's this?" And then KD, I got a guy. You should meet him. And that's how I met John Barrows. That's how I met Devin Reed. And, now we've got about 26 creators on the roster.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm also just curious. I feel like the whole concept of B2B creators, that's a new term that people weren't even using. But when I talk to these people, they call themselves that. That also feels new. And it feels like it's not just doing it as a revenue stream. It's doing it truly because they like to build their audience. It's very organic and authentic. And I feel like that's also something that shifted more recently.
Yeah, well, let's keep in mind, like people like KD, John Barrows, Jen Allen, like they've been posting every day for years. Like I'm talking, like John was member 36,000 and something on LinkedIn. Like
Wow, that's
he's
crazy.
OG, right? So when you take a look at how much these folks have been sharing for how long they've been sharing to amass the following and respect that they have, and now they're getting, now they're finding ways to turn it into a monetary thing. But even then, like we say no more things than we do yes to. Like we're very selective, it needs to be very authentic, has to solve problems for their audiences. They love that behind the scenes. Like they love that more than anything else.
What type of content are you seeing perform well? I've gotten kind of mixed signals on this, but what type of content are you seeing perform well or best, I guess, on LinkedIn right now?
Yeah, so the big ones for me right now, video content. I think everyone's talking about that. So that one sort of short form, less than 60 seconds, makes it to the feed. Talking head style. For some reason, LinkedIn likes it when there's like a side angle. So you like imagine it's like we're at like a live podcast studio. You have a mic, I have a mic. That single shot of the person seems to be working really well. Like I'm almost going to record content like this and just pretend like I'm talking to somebody on the other side. See what happens. Who knows? So there's that.
I try that.
Yeah, might try it. Let's do it. And then the other one that's working really well is co-authored content or lead magnet type of stuff. So if I create like an ebook or a checklist, some sort of guide, and then I get you to say, hey, comment the word X, that's getting a lot of engagement, a lot of downloads. Now, not everyone loves doing that. I'll admit that.
Drives me nuts.
There you go. I saw it on your face right away. I'm like, oh.
I keep joking. I'm like, you would have to literally have somebody else take over my account for me to do. I say this now. Watch, I do it at some point. But that is a style that is irking me.
And that's fine. That's why I'm there. I'm there to do it for you. You don't have to do it. But we've just seen traction work across the board. Like John Barrows did that with Otter, and we got 1,000 downloads in 72 hours for his meeting mastery guide, right? So in terms of what's making an impact, what's working, those types of things where you get people to comment and engage. And I know some people say, hey, it's like clickbaity. As long as the deliverable that you're giving people is what you promised and it's a value, I'm all for it because you're helping every single one of those people out. If it's like, here's my one pager on, and it's like some weird chat GPT thing that took 5 seconds and it's obvious, I'm with you. That's where the cringe comes in.
Yeah. Or I think people are doing it almost too frequently where they just keep packaging up dumb stuff of like,
Yeah, you can't package the dumb stuff. It has to be like real good, like good, the good. So that's
yeah.
where our team has been really big on like the co-authored stuff. It's no one's done it before. Like no one's done those combination of things, and these ideas have never been seen together before. Like those types of things.
The collabs I'm starting to see, which I'm all for. I actually find that to be really fun, where you start to get some of these creators now actually doing collabs together. And I feel like that's, again, we're just maybe 7 to 10 years behind consumer when it
Mhm.
comes to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, we're seeing so many collaboration requests coming in, and what we're about to do is a sneak peek, but we've got creators from like different walks of life. Like most of the time, you'll see a lot of salespeople doing stuff together. But imagine you had like the top productivity expert on this other sphere of LinkedIn, and then you have the top sales voice on this side and the top marketing voice. These people would never talk to each other normally. We're bringing them together. They're all on our roster. So imagine you have like the top productivity person who's like, I don't even know what Sales Navigator is. True story. But in our world, in this B2B SaaS, sales, everyone's like, they don't talk about productivity the way these guys do. So getting those shared perspectives coming in and just challenging, just showing you how big LinkedIn is. That's really going to be I think that's where 2025, the collaborations are going to get incredible.
I really like that of having people that are from very opposite, either walks of life, to your point, or just their world is so different. Last night, funny you mentioned this, I was on a panel about agentic AI
Yeah.
workflows, and there were five of us. Two people were from big companies. So there was one of the founders of Webflow, the leader for AI at Asana, and then three startups. It was me, 11x, and Clarity. And it was just so fascinating to hear how different our worlds were from the startup lens and then from the big company lens. And even the questions the audience asked, our answers could not be more different. But that's what made the panel fun. And so I
Exactly.
feel like that would be a really cool thing to do, and obviously harness that with some people that already have big audiences.
Yeah, I'm so excited for it because that's what you just said is exactly the way I think content's going to evolve on LinkedIn. It's where for the longest time we just had the same B2B SaaS bubble saying nice post because they're like, I've heard this 20 times, I've seen it 20 times, I've seen all the variants for it 20 times, but now it's new perspectives coming in.
What else do you think we're going to start seeing over the next couple of years in terms of new either formats or new ways of doing B2B creative?
Yeah, I'm hoping that we're going to see like from a format perspective. I think video is gonna push the status quo for a bit. I think people are gonna realize the importance of like owning their own audience, so having more things like newsletters and Substacks and things of that nature. I do think the biggest switch though that we're going to start seeing on LinkedIn is like getting more direct to consumer brands plugged in here. And I truly believe that there's a big movement coming on. I'm calling it the person behind the professional, right? You have all these people who look up to all these subject matter expert, these creators that we talk about. And now where the conversations are going is like, what's your routine? What's your diet? What's your fitness plan? What do you do with oh, you're a girl dad. So am I. Like, these are the things. Where should I spend my commission check? You helped me earn this one. I've seen these questions behind the scenes to all these different creators that I get to manage. And I'm just wondering, like, where is United Airlines right now? Why are they not here talking to the traveling salesperson? Where's Chewy and PetSmart? I can promise you every single company Slack channel that I've ever been a part of has a dog channel, has a cat
Yep.
channel. Why are these brands not here talking to us in a contextually relevant way? Right? It's just a missed opportunity. And I think brands are going to wake up to that soon.
That is a very astute point. I had never actually thought about that, but I can totally see that happening. And to your point, it's fusing work and life, which I think kind of got accelerated by the pandemic, where people started working remotely. Everyone felt like, I think with everything in the world in general, people feel like they need some outlet because their entire day is work. So I
Right.
can totally see that. I wanted to, I'm trying to remember, maybe pre-pandemic or right around then. I'm a huge fitness nerd and all forms of extreme sports and activities. But when Glossier, not into beauty, but Glossier had started as this blog where they interviewed all these makeup people or beauty people,
Right.
and it was their routines in their bathroom. And I wanted to go do that for all of the fitness influencers. So all the people who are like the Peloton instructors, the, pick your thing. I could totally see that being a repeatable model that people would get into.
Exactly. Right. And I saw a case in point. So Devin Reed, who's one of our creators, did what his podcast, Read Between the Lines with Jen Allen Knuth. Is one of the best episodes of any podcast. I'm biased, obviously, I love them both, but it's phenomenal. The content, the dialogue, everything. And then when I look at the comments, I'm like, I can't wait. All people could talk about, they're both wearing Jordans. And I was like, they're like, Jen, nice shoes. And oh, look at Devin's green. I was like, is anyone catching on to the content though? And that's like little things like that have just been, I'm picking up on it. And I'm like, these guys already know how amazing and brilliant of technical expertise these two have. They're talking about the fashion. So I actually took a screenshot of that and I sent it to Nike and I sent it to Adidas as well. We'll see if I ever hear back. But those are the types of things I think are going to be coming a lot more on LinkedIn.
And this is why you're so good at this job. You are connecting the dots in ways that I would never even see. Like even the fact that you then use that screenshot to send to Adidas and Nike, like that is genius. So props to you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. I'm trying out here. My goal is to get one of my creators a sneaker deal at some point. That would be, I'll quit the next day. We're done at that point. So
where do you think this could go wrong? Like what are the things that you think could be essentially pitfalls over the next couple of years as this is evolving?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked this. I like you. Okay. So essentially, if we become too transactional, like and anybody promotes anything and they don't know why and they're just walking billboards, if we don't protect the category, not only will the audiences be like, great, everyone is just doing sponsored posts all the time. And I know for a fact that Aneesh actually hates that brand. He said that five minutes ago, and now he's posting, probably got paid to do it. The authenticity behind why creators take on brands needs to be safeguarded. Like it absolutely must. And I often ask creators that, I'm like, hey, tell me about brands you like. And they're like, oh, I'll just work with anybody. That's a huge red flag for us. We actually don't sign those people. If you're not selective as a creator with, especially on a platform like LinkedIn, you're going to get caught real fast. And my only fear right now is like this goes wrong if too many new creators come in because the money's here right now, right? We brought in almost like $2 million. No, we've crossed the $2 million mark for our creators now. So it's like,
Congrats. That's huge.
I appreciate. Yeah, I don't even think we've shared that like publicly, but like, yeah, $2 million we brought in for our creators in the last 12 to 14 months or something. So, and that's with like 14, 15 of our creators out of the 25. So it's like I take a look. I'm like, I know the money's here. I know some of these creators told me, Niche, this is life-changing stuff. Thank you so much. Like we're retiring our parents. Like I've been told some really emotional, moving things. I'm like, now my job as a category leader is to protect this. That's why we if you're not saying no to more than you're saying yes to, something's wrong. Something is very, very wrong. So definitely look out. I'm so glad you asked that question.
I think the other thing to protect the authenticity, there's probably, and I don't know what the number is, but there's got to be some kind of a ratio of for every X number of posts, only one of them is sponsored or only one of them is on behalf of somebody who's paying me. And I feel like that's the line you have to walk as an individual to maintain the trust with your audience. But I think that's also probably something that you can help either figure out the magic number or guide on.
Yeah. So we do have that. My creators will not do more than four brand deals at any given time.
Yeah.
So we have some exceptions, like if it's like oh my goodness, like X brand, which is massive and I love them, they showed up and we're going to do a one-off. Okay, there are exceptions, but for the most part, 99% of the time, no more than 4 brand deals per creator. And that means that they, and all of them only do a monthly promoted post so you're looking at 4 promoted posts per month max. If
You know,
that.
You know what I think also I could see turning into a way to kind of continue to foster this authenticity and trust is that you start to do collab is not the right word, but you actually start to aggregate non-competitive companies
Mhm.
that the creator works with. And the posts are going to incorporate numerous companies, which makes it much more about a theme or about a general category and less so just shilling a single company. And I feel like when I see posts where it's incorporating multiple shout outs, I just pay more attention because I'm like, oh, this looks like somebody who's done their research. It looks like somebody who's actually being really objective. So I can also see that being a way
Mhm.
to maintain that level of trust.
Yeah, yeah, we're a lot of our creators do that. They're like, here's 5 technologies I can't live without, right? And then they explain why. And chances are at least 2 or 3 of those might be partners. Maybe just one is. You never know. But a lot of our creators, they're becoming a lot more at our instruction, like where we really want to again protect the audience's integrity as well. Like, um, if you're going to mention a brand, we always put in brackets like sponsor, or there's a hashtag at the bottom that says this is a paid partnership, or you have to turn on that brand partnerships toggle to let people know that this is a brand thing. But even in people's newsletters, I know some of my creators will like endorse like, oh, I love this mouse, made this up, but then they'll be like not a sponsor, right?
Yeah.
Like they're so protective of that, because they never want to come across as misleading, because they know the moment that happens, the moment you get someone in your eyes to go, is this real? That's the seed of doubt that just starts the downward spiral of unsubscribe.
I
It
agree.
really is.
How do you determine pricing? Because I feel like
Oh,
it
I
can't
like
just
you.
be, yeah. It can't just be like number of followers because there's like premium followers and there's followers. Like, how
Yeah.
do you guys do that?
Yeah. So there is it's a bit of an art and science now. So there is a part where I'm like, hey, creator X, like, what is your time even worth? Like, what do you want to earn from all this? Right. Because if we're only going to do 3 or 4 strategic partnerships, we only do 3-month minimum strategic partnerships. I'd imagine you only get 3 or 4 brands at a time. We're going to go deeper with the brands. So it's what can we offer the brand that's worth anywhere from $5,000 a month. Some of my creators get paid $10,000 a month. It really depends on who they are, who their audiences are. So we start there with like, hey, what is it that you want to earn? And then we reverse engineer the number of activations necessary to make it worthwhile for a brand. For example, if it's just a promoted post, chances are you're not going to get paid a lot of money, right? Like it's a you get a portion. But if you have a newsletter, if you have a podcast, if you're cool to do webinars, if you're down to do co-authored content and really learn about what this brand is doing, if you're good to get on the phone and make reference calls, I have creators who do that. We bundle all those things together to make it worthwhile to the brand, and we make it worthwhile for the creator. I have so many people who just go, hey, what's the CPM rate? $25, $30. That's a litmus test. But like if you're a brand and you're just coming in on CPM, I highly recommend to like reevaluate that strategy, because if I have 100,000 followers and you have 20,000 followers, but your 20,000 followers are C-suite executive,
Mhm.
you're you're going to have way less impressions than me on 20,000 versus 100,000, but your impressions are worth a lot more, guaranteed. So
Yep.
if you're going off just the CPM, that's not accurate to determine value all the time. It's not. It's like it's one of many metrics we would look at.
I totally agree with that. I also like, the light turned off in here. I also like that you think through what is the whole bundle of an activation. One of our customers used this term. We hosted a dinner, and I loved the term that he used. He said, "My goal right now is to envelop people in our brand." And what he kind of meant by that is both in person, digitally, with influencers, with everything. I want us to be there. I want us to be a part of the conversation. And I think what I'm hearing with some other brands is their expectations are not really aligned with what this channel does. And
Right.
I don't think people should think of this as a pure lead gen, like we put in this amount and here's how many demos booked we're going to get. it's very much about enveloping your audience in your brand and building that trust with other people. And I think if people look at it that way, then the ROI is extremely high.
Right. And this is what I've been trying to educate brands for, because I have about 30 brand conversations a week now, or like, it's madness. And all of them are like, hey, Aneesh, like, we're just going to do like, we just want 10 influencers to do like this pay per post thing. And I'm like, hey, that's fine. It works up. I'm not saying it doesn't work. However, if you have less brand equity, that people don't know who you are, the chances of it working do go down. And the reality is you might have a nice big splash, like, hey, we got a million impressions in a week. But if nobody knows the problem you solve, if nobody can recall you 3 weeks later, if nobody knows who do I go to because of this problem, then candidly the awareness is pointless in this channel. We really focus heavily on making sure that people know who you are and then can recall you for the right reason, which is why we do the multi-channel, multi-month, 3-month thing.
Yeah.
That's so important, because I want people to know in 3 months, it's like, yeah, oh, I have this problem with, top of funnel, right? I know who to go to. I have this problem with video prospect. Oh, I'm going to go to that thing that John Barrows talked about. So that's where you need to know how to continue the conversation with the customer. And if you're not thinking about that in your influencer marketing, that's where things start falling apart.
I also think that because this is obviously a new channel for most people, they don't necessarily have the correct infrastructure in place to then leverage what this is bringing them. So do you have a way to figure out signal and intent based off of some of this? It's not just who commented or liked a post. Like, that is not enough signal. But can I now start seeing, hey, this person, or maybe 4 people from this company, have started interacting with content from our creators that all are talking about a subject? That gives me a pretty good signal. And I think that it's a lot of work right now, which is why people aren't doing it. But I can also see a ton of value in figuring out whatever that infrastructure is to help turn it into more than just a brand awareness channel.
Yeah. And people have to realize, like, every category that you're up against is so many players, and they're all coming onto LinkedIn. They're all trying to educate their audiences. That signal strength, people want it after post number 1.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Even with the infrastructure, they're like, Aneesh, we ran the analysis. I'm like, that post went live 3 days ago. What did you think was gonna? Yeah, but I love when people. Yeah, but
demos.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm sorry, because I never promised you 100 leads in 3 days, right? So it's just something to keep in mind. I think there's like all things, there's the right way to do things, and on LinkedIn, the influencer game, it is a little bit longer.
Well, I know we're at time. I have one last question for you, and then we're definitely going to have to do part 2. For any companies who this is new for them, so brands that want to go and actually engage with influencers, what should they know that we haven't talked about? What questions should they be asking, or what should they be thinking through?
Yeah, first thing you want to do is understand, what are the preconceived notions of my category. That's the first question I ask anyone. I'm like, who do you think you compete with? Oh no, we do this thing AI differently, and we're like nobody. Like, we have frenemies, right? Like, we do a little bit of Zoom info stuff, a little bit of Clay stuff, a little bit of that stuff. I'm like, I love how you know that, but to the average person, what category do you think they're going to slot you in without knowing all the stuff you just told me? Once you know the preconceived notions that you're up against, category wise, all the biases that come with a category, then you need to find the creator who can help you dispel those preconceived notions. So are you going to bring in someone like a macro level person who's very good at being an authority in the same space you want to be? Great. That helps there. Or do you need multiple conversations at scale? That's where you go the micro influencer strategy, right? You need lots of these conversations happening in parallel. It really depends. But once you know what your preconceived notions are, what you're up against, it makes that decision a lot easier.
That is such a good tactic. You should put a framework around that. Give it a name.
That's actually not a bad idea. I do this every day. I'm like, I should write down these things and make it a system. So
you should. People love that. People love frameworks.
They do. They do.
Honestly, this has been so fun. We definitely need to do part 2 at some point, but really appreciate it, Aneesh. And honestly, excited to see what this year brings. Keep on.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.